This is part 4. You can find links to part 1 to 3 in the description. The Ballad of Big Gus, part 4. I can't exactly just come right out and tell you what a fib is. They're kind of like a troll, but different. See, a troll, if you call a troll right to his face, he don't get too bothered by it. He might say, "Hey now, why don't you let me buy you a beer or something?" But if you call a fib, they get real mad. Which is kind of funny if you think about it. They don't come from under the bridge like the trolls do. They come from somewhere else. I think maybe there's a lot of people there that don't feel so good, and it's real annoying or something like that. It's mostly just concrete and traffic lights where they live. It's not like the Yoop at all. Just go ahead and try to imagine just as much concrete and traffic lights as you can there. That's a lot of concrete and traffic lights, eh? Well, where the fibs come from, there's even more concrete and traffic lights than that. They talk kind of funny too, like they say sausage instead of sausage. I think maybe the fibs heard about the Yoop on account of their truck driving buddies hauling bush lights across the bridge. They probably heard about all them trees and how there's not much concrete or traffic lights up there. Kind of sounded to them like there's not too much to do in the Yoop, and they thought they might like to see what that's like, to hang out for a while where there's not too much to do, that is. So the fibs started coming. A lot of them came and complained a lot about how it's not like home, which is kind of funny if you think about it. I mean, there's a McDonald's in Marquette, don't you know? But they sure did like to spend a lot of money, so the Yoopers didn't mind them coming around too much. As long as they don't make a bunch of ruckus or stick around too long, anyway. Anyhow, the fibs was so used to driving around in all that concrete and traffic lights all the time that they couldn't really think of much else to do when they was in the Yoop. So they started bringing all sorts of motorized contraptions around with them so they could go zipping around in the woods. It's really not too shabby an idea if you think about it, and a lot of the Yoopers started doing it too. It wasn't too long until the fibs found out about Big Gus, though. Which wasn't really a bad thing at first, at least. I mean, Big Gus is pretty sweet, eh? But before you know it, when those fibs seen Big Gus, they started asking all kinds of technical questions about the motor and stuff. Turns out they was fixing to use that 305 cubic inch water-cooled V8 to go zipping around in the woods real fast, like. Maybe the fibs like to go real fast on account of all the traffic back home that makes them have to drive real slow all the time or something. It's hard to say, but they sure do like to go zipping around in the woods. A lot of them even like it so much that they go around on snow machines when it's real cold outside. Well, real cold for a fib anyway. Real cold for a Yooper is a different kind of thing entirely. But nothing that a sauna and maybe a couple of beers can't fix. Anyhow, the fibs was real interested in the 305 cubic inch water-cooled V8 that ran Big Gus. You see, they don't know too much about the story of the bush light trees and the bridge. They don't seem to care too much about this story either. I think that might have a little bit to do with why they're called fibs, but it's hard to say for sure. Any rate, they didn't know too much about that story, but they sure knew a lot about engines and contraptions that you can use to go zipping around in the woods. They really wanted to get their hands on the 305 cubic inch water-cooled V8 that was the heart and soul of Big Gus. Well, it turns out that the fibs are kind of sneaky like the trolls, and the trolls knew it too, so it wasn't too long before some scheming, greedy little troll came up with an idea. He figured he could find a sort of gullible fib and trick him into buying the motor out of Big Gus from him, even though it wasn't properly his to sell in the first place. Later on in court, it would be revealed that the scheming, greedy little troll just sold the naming rights to the image of Big Gus as illustrated in the scheming, greedy little troll's quarterly newsletter, 305 cubic inch water-cooled V8s illustrated monthly, which is kind of funny if you think about it. Anyhow, the unlucky fib who fell for that greedy little scheme and ended up paying a bunch of money, even signed a bunch of paperwork, made it seem all official and stuff. He didn't know it was a scheme at all, so you can imagine he was mighty surprised when he seen Big Ernie. Big Ernie, you might be asking yourself? And you'd be right to do so on account of, up until this point, only the Yoopers knew about Big Ernie. Well, that's the end of part, what part is this, 4? Anyhow, thanks for coming along, and if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, well, that's a big shame and nobody likes you. Come back for part 5, will ya?